So your partner wants space right now, and you're trying to figure out how to get her back fast. But what if I told you that not only is there no way to get her back fast, but actually asking that question may be the very exact reason why she wanted space in the first place. So in this video, I'm going to show you why that is a very terrible question to ask. And I'm going to show you also what you need to be focusing on instead. And if you want to see more content that cuts through a lot of the BS advice on relationships and videos that gives you the truth, everything you need to create that reconciliation or the relationship of your dreams, feel free to subscribe and click the bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. Now, before we get into it though, we have to clarify that the reasons why your partner wants space is going to be very different for long-term relationships versus short-term relationships. When you talk about short-term relationships, the reason why your partner wants space is usually due to attraction issues or the lack thereof. But when it comes to longer-term relationships, we need to understand that the attraction was there to begin with, but something caused the degradation of that attraction over time. And the second thing you have to understand, guys, is that asking someone to dedicate their one and only life to you and not even want space, not even look elsewhere, is a freaking massive ask. And the problem here is that a lot of men, they don't actually know what it means or what it's like to give the higher level values in a relationship. You know, if you watch a lot of red pill videos, for example, or high value man videos, they'll always just talk about how much a man can provide, protect, but this provision and protection only relates to the lower levels of human needs if you think about it. So if you look at, for example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they really only touch on the first level here, which is the physiological or the survival needs, or at most the second level. We're talking about financial security, financial safety, physical safety. But when it comes to the more emotional stuff, the self-actualized needs, a lot of men, they haven't been trained to understand how to actually create those higher level needs, higher level values. And as we'll talk about later too, if you look at the lives of modern women today, they understand and they can actually create these lower level values themselves. They can get the financial security. They can fulfill the lower level needs themselves. So what they're looking for are really the higher level needs now. But having the higher level needs not met, that's not actually the actual reason why your partner wants space. It's when these needs are not met, plus coupled with what we call the catch-22. So what is the catch-22? So to understand this, imagine you're working for a company and you have a problem with the boss you're working for. This boss makes you feel very unhappy. The way he does things just makes you miserable. So you're left with three options here. The first option is that you share to your boss about the problems. But whenever you share these problems with your boss gets angry, he gets upset, he starts to explain to you and justify to you why he's not the one that's bad, you're the one who's bad. He starts to explain away the problems and saying like, well, you don't understand, this is really the problem and this is why I have to do things the way I do things. So basically, whenever you share about the problems, you lose. Nothing happens, nothing good happens. But of course, the second choice, where you don't share, you also lose, because if you don't share about the problems, nothing can happen because the problem isn't known. So if the first two options are really bad options, that leaves you with the last one, which is just to simply leave and get space from that company. And when you think about your partner wanting space, she's usually in the same position too. So you have the problem here, which is the higher level needs are not met. So your partner's feeling a bit unfulfilled, unhappy. Maybe there are problems, real problems that she's perceiving that is making her miserable. But whenever she shares these stuff with you, you pretend to be completely oblivious of the problems. You even sometimes deny the problems. You try to explain away the problems. And you try to basically make her feel like she's the one having the problem or she's the one with the problem in the first place. So here you're also putting her in the same catch-22 where she loses if she shares. Obviously, she will lose if she doesn't share about the problems, which leaves her the only choice, which is to simply get space, leave. So I want you to pause this video for a bit and really think about just how hopeless that feels to be having issues, plus those issues be coupled with the catch-22. Think about if you're working for that company, for example. How would you feel? And would you also want space from that company, from your boss? And think about also the reasons why you want that space. You really need that space because being in that catch-22 really makes you lose yourself. It's really terrible, hopeless feeling that is really even hard to describe. And that's exactly what your partner is feeling and thinking and doing right now as well. Now, the problem starts when a lot of men, they see that their partner is wanting space and pulling away. But what a lot of men do is that they channel their efforts into the wrong questions, into the wrong actions. So a lot of men just focus so much and they obsess about, how do I get her back fast? How do I pull her back in? How do I convince her that this is a place she wants to be and that she doesn't need the space in the first place? Men usually resort to one of three methods. The first method is what we call the active approach, where you are getting angry at your partner. You are trying to guilt trip your partner away from wanting her space in the first place. You could use the stoic approach, where you are trying to explain using logical arguments, using promises, for example, to try to rope their partner back in. Or you could try the passive approach, which is actually one of the worst approaches you can do, which is when you pretend like her wanting space doesn't actually bother you. You pretend like you're indifferent, you don't care, you are aloof, that you don't care about her in the first place, in order for you to create some intrigue or to play some games to suddenly make her want you again. Because we hear the words, for example, the most powerful position is when you can walk away and mean it, and we take that maxim completely out of context. Now, when you begin to understand the reasons why your partner wants space, and you couple that with the three toxic approaches that most people do, you can start to understand why doing these three things and focusing so much on trying to get your partner back right now is actually going to backfire hard. Because number one reason is these three approaches, bred from your obsession to get your partner back, is the exact types of actions that destroyed the safety that created the catch-22 in the first place. So think about it here, guys, right? So why does the catch-22 exist in the first place? Why does your partner feel like she will lose if she shares? Because number one, you used to always take on the active approach when responding. So whenever she tells you a problem, you would get angry at her for expressing to you the problem. You would try to guilt trip her for even feeling unhappy in the first place. A lot of men say things like, what do you have to be unhappy about? We have a nice house, we have a nice car, we have great kids, you have everything you need. What do you have to feel unhappy about? So you're trying to basically convince her that her unhappiness is a bad thing somehow. So there, she loses when she shares her problems. Maybe you try the stoic approach, where you're trying to make promises, you're trying to use your logical arguments to convince her again of why her problems that she feels right now doesn't really exist. Or maybe you're trying the passive approach, where you're simply ignoring and pretending like the problems aren't really there, they don't really exist, they're made up, etc. I mean, this is really the definition of what sweeping things under the rug really means. So let's pause for a bit here, and let's really think about how dumb it is for you to respond in the active, stoic, and passive approach when your partner tells you that she wants space. So she tells you she wants space. That is her expressing her negative feelings about the situation. And when she tells you about the problems, you respond in one of these three ways, basically punishing her once again for bringing up the problems in the first place. So worsening the catch-22 that she's in. Do you see this, guys? Do you see the irony? Do you see the paradoxical nature of responding in one of these three ways? So another way to understand how trying to get her back fast right now, how it's gonna backfire, is to understand the difference between falling versus striving outcomes. Now, if you look at the word falling in love, they call it falling in love for a reason, because again, falling in love is a very falling outcome. And there are several things in life that are also falling outcomes. For example, falling asleep or falling into rest. Now imagine you're trying to fall asleep and there is like someone above your bed right now pressuring you to fall asleep. Can you actually fall asleep? Would it make it easier for you to fall asleep? Obviously the answer is no. It'll make it a lot harder for you to fall asleep. So the same thing, when you are so obsessed about getting your partner back, that is like you hovering over someone's bed and going, hey, can you please fall asleep now? Can you please fall asleep now? And giving a lot of pressure to that person to fall asleep. If you're obsessed, you're going to very subconsciously pressure your partner into falling in love, which will ironically get her away from falling in love with you in the first place. And this is something that you might think you can hide, but this will show in the very subtle micro expressions, in the subtle microtones that you have whenever you speak to her, whenever you are interacting with her. And I have a lot of clients who think they're hiding this, but they're actually doing a much worse job in hiding it than they think they are. And this is actually why, guys, if you look at the program curriculum that we have, we discuss untethering as one of the first things that the clients learn. Because without untethering, if you are doing something, if you're changing, for example, if you are learning the skills to become a better partner, better man, a higher value man, but your intention of that doing, of that learning is to have, you ironically will never have. Because again, that having is a falling having. You have to learn how to do because you are. And ironically, when you start to learn to do because you are without any expectation of having, that is when you will have. This is a very mind-bending concept that prevents a lot of people from truly understanding what untethering really means. But this is a very, very crucial shift and understanding and mastery that you need to make if you ever want to fill your life with more falling outcomes. In this case, relationships are falling outcomes. And the third reason, guys, why this will backfire is when we understand the principle of manipulation versus inspiration. You know, a lot of people, the problem is that they see reconciliation as really the end goal. Once you get the reconciliation, everything will just be simple and easy and great from then on. But you know, reconciliation doesn't really work like that. Reconciliation is not like a one-time sale, like buying a car, for example, that like, you know, once a salesman kind of does his job in using a lot of manipulation and trickery and all these like promises to get you to buy that car, like you will never see that salesman again. But a relationship is not like that. The point of reconciliation is actually the beginning, not the end. So for example, in my job as a coach, you know, I cannot rely on a lot of lies and manipulation to get that sale. Because what happens after I get that sale? So let's say I lie, cheat, and steal to get someone to buy my program. Well, when someone buys my program, that is not the end of my relationship with that person. That's actually the start. So if I rely on lying, cheating, and stealing and all these promises to get that sale, that's gonna backfire hard on me, because once they buy the program, they realize, oh wait, I just got lied to, and that just causes a lot of havoc. So when you ask the question like, how do I get her back fast? That tells me that your attention and your focus is on the wrong thing. You are still treating reconciliation like it's an end, and you're not understanding that reconciliation is not an end, it's actually the start. And it tells me, and it should tell you as well, that you think that you have actually changed, and now you are just focusing on the tactics for your partner to see those changes. So one thing you guys need to accept here is that when your partner is at a point where she wants space and she's really adamant about getting that space, you know, it's not just about the problems happening plus the catch-22, but it's these two things happening over and over and over and over again. And when you're so focused on how to get your partner back fast like this, it tells your partner, it tells me, and it should tell you that you're still focused on the tactics, on the quick fixes, on the shortcuts to get your partner back, and not really focused on becoming, having that permanent changes inside. And this will backfire hard, guys, because your partner already knows all the tactics you play. You have to understand that when your partner wants space and she's very adamant about it, it's because whenever she tells you how unhappy she is, you play all these tactics, all these promises that you don't actually mean, you don't actually understand, that gets her hopes up, but then you destroy those hopes when she realizes that you cannot follow through on those. And the cycle repeats after time and time and time again. And so she already knows all the tactics you play. She already knows your MO here. There's nothing new under the sun that she can ever believe. And so you relying more on these tactics that caused the problems in the first place to try to solve your problems is just idiotic, guys. And to make it worse, guys, the worst position that I see a lot of my clients falling into before they join the program is that they rely on all these tactics to basically lie, cheat, and steal to get their partner back fast. And when their partner realizes that all that stuff was just empty promises and empty words, it will become much harder in the future to actually get your partner back again. Like imagine if you were an employer, for example, and someone lied to get that job. Would you ever even consider hiring that person ever in the future, no matter how much that person has changed? It'll be much harder for you to. Same thing here. So never ever treat reconciliation like the end. It's not the end. You have to actually back it up with real changes, because reconciliation is the start of your performance. It's the start of everything. So if you shouldn't focus on getting your partner back fast, what should you be focusing on then? So the first thing you need to focus on is understanding that the book right now, the chapters, the story is already written, and there's nothing you can do to change it in the short term. And you have to realize here that even if you were to right now stuff a suitcase full of $1 million and give it to your partner, she will still misunderstand your intentions for why you're doing that. And she will still twist it and bend it in the wrong ways anyway. There is no magical set of words. There's nothing you can say or do right now to change the story. So again, what is happening today is already written by what you did 12 to 24 months ago. And what you did 12 to 24 months ago, guys, was driven by the same sense of urgency, the same wrong questions, the same bad questions that you're asking now, which is how do I get her back fast? And now guys, what we're trying to write today is what will happen to you in the next 12 to 24 months. So the most important thing you need to do right now is never use the same knowledge, the same approach, the same thinking, the same actions that got you here in the first place. Don't do the same things now, because doing the same things now will get you in the same place 12 to 24 months from now. And I see so many of my clients falling into this trap because, 12 to 24 months ago, they were trying to rewrite what was happening then. They already saw and felt the problems. They were trying to rewrite what was happening then through this wrong question, through the same urgency. And because of that, they're now, at present day, they're in a bad position. But at present day, they're still using that same thinking. And in 12 to 24 months, they're going to be in the same position again. And so they never, in their whole life, they'll always be writing bad stories over and over and over again because they never see and seem to accept that there is really nothing you can do to change your story right now. And the second thing is you need to learn, and this is going to be the hardest thing, you need to learn to accept that maybe there are certain flaws and weaknesses that you had that you may not know about that cause the destruction of safety, that cause not only your partner to not feel fulfilled in all the higher level human needs, but also some things you might have done to put your partner in that catch-22 in the first place. And I'm not saying that you guys are doing this intentionally, but sometimes and often I see a lot of my clients doing this unintentionally, very subconsciously as well. And right now I can already see a lot of comments floating around this video right here of men saying basically men using the active, stoic or passive approach and telling other people in the comment section about their high value and it's their partner's fault for not seeing that value. The way I see this, guys, is almost like these men are doing a last-ditch effort to try to convince themselves and other people that they're actually higher value than they actually are. Imagine a man, for example, who through the things he does and says, he shows all his cards and his cards are not good. And everyone, because they see the cards that he has, they stop believing in him. And so, you see this guy and people just start walking away from him. And as other people are walking away, he's shouting like, "You'll regret this. You'll see. You don't know what you're leaving." Right? That's just a very sad sight because the only person that person is lying to is really himself. No one buys the shtick anymore. So don't be one of these people, guys. Really learn to accept your flaws, accept your weaknesses, because right now your partner is wanting space if you're in a long-term relationship because she already sees the lack of value. She already knows all your tactics. She already knows what you're made of. There's no point in trying to justify and lie and be in denial of what your true value is anymore. And we talked about this quite deeply in the previous video when we talk about how this denial is going to be true but useless at best and true and harmful at worst. And so if you want to watch that video, I'll leave the link above my head or also down below this video as well. And the third step, guys, after you have that internal acceptance, and this is something I teach my clients too pretty early on in the program, is to express that acceptance, to express that humility. And so we do this to what we call the treating the hemorrhage script. And this TTH script, as we call it, has four main components. So it has a statement of action, the negation of resistance, the old self and implications, and new self and implications. And it sounds something like this. So if my partner tells me she wants space, instead of using the active, stoic, or passive approach, I'll just say, for example, "Hey, if you want space, totally understand. I want to give you that space." So that's your statement of action. And I'm saying this right now, not because I'm trying to play some manipulation, some games, because I can imagine this can sound pretty different and unexpected. That's a negation of resistance, right? Then you transition into the old self, which is, I've been thinking a lot about how I've conducted conversations in the past, and whenever you tell me really difficult emotions, really difficult truths about how unhappy you feel, for example, I've always done a lot of things to manipulate you, to convince you, to make promises, false promises, and I just don't want to do that anymore because of these implications. And the reason why I'm saying this right now, and I'm allowing that space, is because I want to create more safety, etc. So that's an example of a TTH script. And this, guys, can be a really, really powerful thing that you can say. But here's a big caveat though. A lot of my clients, for example, when they learn the TTH script, it takes them about a full month for them to understand the full, not only the what, the structure of the TTH, but also the how. How to say it with the right microtones, with the right micro expressions, and also time to understand the right why. How to say the TTH with the right intentions, with the right internal states. Because if done wrong, this TTH can actually backfire hard. So that's the reason, guys, I don't usually share scripts or frameworks within my program because I can teach you the right what, but without the right how and the why behind that what, it's gonna backfire hard on you. It's like giving you a weapon, a sharp weapon that you don't know how to use, and you might end up hurting yourself in the process. So while I gave you the TTA script here, please use it with caution. Understand that you have to know the right how and the right why behind it before you can use it properly. And leading on to my fourth point, remember that when you say your TTH script, that is just a start. Because again, once you say to your partner that I accept my flaws and I'm going to start working on my flaws, you actually have to deliver on that promise. You know, giving the TTA script is like planting a seed on the ground. And then you delivering is like you continuously watering it. It's like you can plant a seed and as many seeds as you want, but if you never deliver, you never water it, you never nurture it, it will turn to nothing. So don't be one of those people, for example, who say, okay, I'm gonna give your partner space or my partner space on day one, and then day three, they get all tethered, they get all scared, they get all anxious, and they start to reach out and make contact and basically break the promise they made on day one after just 3 days. Don't be one of those people, right? So for a lot of my clients, once they give this TTH script, they're going to usually do 6 to 12 months of pretty silent work, where sometimes this work involves a lot of no contact, because you're just doing internal work. And a great example of this is Elisa Bompadre, where we did an interview with her a couple of weeks back or a month back, where she basically said that she was focused on just the internal shifts for 9 months before she even learned the frameworks. And it took her another, I think, 4 to 6 months to learn the framework. So she was talking about over a year of no contact, of just silently working on herself before she was actually performing and initiating contact. That is actually what it takes. If you want to use the TTH script and you want to deliver on it, you actually have to deliver on not just days or weeks, but months or even years of what it means to give your partner space. So the main question is like, are you guys ready to actually do this? Are you ready to do the long haul, the 6 to 12 months of silent internal work? Because if you're not ready to do it, then I would suggest that you don't actually say the TTH script, because you can never mean anything that you say there. And to do number 4 properly, guys, you need to support that with what we call the internal shifts, like untethering, for example. And we always say that in a reconciliation process, it's not a line going up. It's usually a case where it actually gets worse in the short term, where her resistance, her doubt will increase in the short term before it gets better. And their doubt will increase and gets worse because whenever you change, you'll face what we call the paradox of change, where you changing will actually create a lot more suspicions, a lot more doubt in your partner in the short term. Now, if your mind and your soul is tethered towards your circumstance, towards what your partner says, towards the outcome, you are never going to make it through this dip. You're always going to be giving up during this dip. You're always going to be feeling demotivated, feeling angry during this dip. There's no way. We haven't seen one client who is tethered and is able to get through that dip. The only way you can get through that dip and get to the upside here is if you learn how to untether and you learn to do because you are, not to do because you have. And there's a lot more examples of why these internal shifts are going to be very crucial. But the point here again, guys, is if you are trying to accept your flaw and actually give your partner space and actually work for the long haul, 6 to 12 months to work on yourself, that's going to be a very difficult process that without the internal shifts, you can never make it. You can never make it through this valley right here. And when you master this internal shifts, guys, you're basically building a great product within. And once you build that great product, you can now focus on the marketing. You can now focus on the frameworks. You can now focus on the tactics and the ways in which you can start and progress conversations. But again, the problem with a lot of people is that they focus on marketing before they even build a great product. So then you're just marketing nothing. You're marketing fluff. And you'll find that whatever you try to market is not gonna work. And when you're asking the question, for example, how do I get her back fast? You're telling the world and yourself here that you're really focused on marketing, but you're not really focused on building that great product. And as long as you're focused on that question, not only is it going to point you in the wrong direction, but it's going to backfire hard over and over and over again. But once you build a great product and match it with the great marketing as well, that's when you will basically transcend the game. And when you transcend the game, guys, you don't need to worry about this petty crap, petty questions, petty tactics anymore, because you will just attract the people you want to attract. So if you want to learn more about a system and a program that teaches you how to transcend the game here, so that you no longer have to ask silly questions like, how do I get her back fast? You can join me in my masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact steps that all my clients follow to get them from very dire situations to where they are today. And at the end of the masterclass too, I'll show you how to apply for the program if you're interested, but I'll leave the link to the masterclass above my head, also down below this video as well, in case you're interested. So I hope that was helpful. And for now, I'll see you in the next video.